Hey, Trew.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
Thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's super fun. Do you see I have your painting as my background?
Yes, I love that. Thank you.
I don't know if you got my DM, but I wanted to talk to you about Nipsey Hussle today too. Um,
Sure.
but how was your day going?
So far, so good. They all seem the same anymore.
Yeah. Yes,
We're all
yo.
running in together. I'm like, I don't even know what date it is. It was so funny because for this interview, I was like, okay, it's in 3 days, it's in 2 days, it's in one day. Because I was like, I don't know what day it is. I just can count them.
Yes. Yo, calendars aren't real anymore. I have a calendar right over there and I don't even use it at all anymore.
I was like, have you touched it? Is it collecting dust?
It's collecting dust. There's nothing happening there. Did you have work outside of your house then? Back before this happened?
it was interesting because I closed my sugar coated show last October, and I was in the planning stages to take sugar coated to different cities.
Wow.
And so obviously that's not happening, but it actually kind of worked out that I hadn't really solidified any plans or invested in any venues or anything like that because um, obviously everything switched up on us, which was kind of a surprise. So fortunately, I had another project brewing simultaneously that
Oh,
has
nice.
yeah. So I've been able to spend my time developing that, and that's a very exciting project that's actually gaining a lot of traction very quickly. So I'm very excited to talk about that today too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
So
okay, well let's jump in then. So I mean you already kind of started. Do you want to tell us about your project or do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself first? I'm also I was really curious about how you got started in art and kind of like what inspired you to get going there.
sure. So I was kind of born into it. My mom's an art
Nice.
teacher, so she had us with clay and crayons, and all of our spare time was really spent scribbling on chalkboards and stuff. And so she put me in my first professional art class when I was in third grade outside of school.
Go mom.
So yeah, go mom, right? So I started learning things about depth perception and points of view and creating dimension at a really early age. And I always say that the key to being a good artist is learning how to see first.
Mm.
So, and I think that that's where because if you can dissect a 3D object into 2D shapes and put them together, then
Yeah.
and add shading. So it's about being able to like flatten reality and then add shading in certain areas so that it adds the dimension that actually exists.
Wow. You just blew my mind, yo. You're hella like technical with it. That's amazing.
Well, it's interesting because like another advantage of having an art teacher as a mom is you can't teach if you can't break things down into the simplest
Right.
point of information. So, and that actually ties in really well to one of my other projects, True Basics, which is because okay, so to go back into the history, I got into art was developing my craft, but I always in the back of my mind was like art equals poor. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like everybody's been told that story.
Right.
So I didn't want to pursue that career. In fact, I was going to undergraduate school for to be an orthodontist. I was a chem
Wow.
major.
Super
Yeah,
different.
and yeah, totally different. And I got through organic chemistry and was like, this is not for me. I'm glad I can do it. It's a cool thing to be able to say that I actually like passed barely, by the way.
That's awesome though. I couldn't do that. I stopped
I don't
taking
know how
science
I
in like 10th grade.
did. So it was a process of elimination. So after I graduated, how old was I? That was after college. I was 19. After high school, I got a job at Mac, and that's when Mac was like blowing up. It was the coolest
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it was a really lucrative way to utilize my art skills in a way that didn't have the risk associated with it that being a canvas painter artist or a sculpture
Right.
artist would have. So my makeup career really developed naturally. It kind of snowballed. I was doing backstage makeup for Lion King in Kansas City at their touring
Wow.
show, which was really cool.
Wait,
And
I actually went to that. I was in Kansas City,
what?
and yeah, I have family in Kansas City, and we went to like a Lion King show.
OMG! I was literally that's crazy. What a small world. What a small world.
Dude, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, so I was painting the kids' faces, little Nala and Simba. So I learned a lot about backstage work, which was really useful information later on, because I actually, when I moved out to LA, I moved to go to beauty industry merchandising marketing at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, thinking that, maybe I'll go into the corporate side of beauty. Right. And what I realized is that corporate beauty is just corporate. Dang. You're sitting at a desk, you're doing paperwork, you're poking and prodding at things, and it doesn't have the the reality is often not what it seems. You get into it and it's just different. And I was like,
glamorous.
Exactly, it's not all that glamorous. So it was another one of those things. Well, like, okay, shoot, I moved to LA to go to school, and it's not really striking my chords the way that I was expecting that it would. So I was a sales representative for Urban Decay and traveled all over Southern California repping that brand, and had some really valuable experiences doing that.
Nice.
But what I realized that if this is the coolest job in makeup, which it was, being a brand rep for a really amazing brand, then what is it? And so I ended up quitting that and starting a company with my new best friend at the time. This is back in 2013. And we created a company called Soundstrokes, which would take the unique waveform of any audio file and turn it into a custom handmade painting.
Wow.
So it was really cool.
Name too, Soundstrokes.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I was like, I sat on that one for a minute. So we had that whole company running for a minute, and then it didn't end up working out. So then it was like, okay, well, what do I do now? And so I met my ex-boyfriend at the time, and he actually was the one who introduced me to pop art. So he was really into the pop art resurgence scene that was going on in 2014. And so this back here was, these pieces here were my first go around at pop art, because I really loved the bright colors and the flat colors without the shading. And I was like, let me see if I can do this. And it really worked with me and my style, because I'm a loud person anyway. So loud colors just kind of fit.
That's awesome.
So he helped me a lot creatively, really pushed my boundaries in terms of the quality of work that I was creating. So he really challenged me to believe that I could be an artist seriously. So I have him to thank for that, because otherwise I don't know if I'd had the courage to step out on my own without that support.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was really amazing. It was one of those kind of like universe moments where, someone comes into your life and your life is never the same. And he and I are still very, very close today. We're partners in life, as I like to say.
I love it.
Yeah. So after that, it was like, okay, I need to find a meaning behind my work, because I can create cool things, but if I'm not saying something, then to me it's just pretty things, and the world has enough pretty things. Like, we need things with meaning, with depth. I think that a lot of us are really seeking depth in a new way. And so in 2017, I took a break from art altogether, and I got involved in activism. So it was right after Standing Rock, and I was so offended by what was going on that I was like, I have to do something. I don't know what to do. And a friend of mine told me to get involved in this group called Divest LA. So we formulated a very diverse coalition of people, and we started lobbying the LA City Council and telling them that they needed to take all of their money out of Wells Fargo for funding the Dakota Access Pipeline. And over a year of consistent lobbying, we got them to divest. We got them to bar Wells Fargo. Incredible. And that movement actually morphed into a public banking movement. So because it was
girl.
So
say that.
So it was really wild. It was my first taste in citizen engagement and the power of a small group of determined people to make a difference.
Yes.
And that, and it's when you realize you've got that kind of power, I was like, okay, how am I going to utilize that power in my artwork? Because art, as I like to say, is the message with no words. It has the ability to reach people in a way that speaking often, because people will shut down if you're speaking. They're like, either they'll judge you based off of how you look, or if they don't necessarily agree with the way that you're saying things, even if they, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But with artwork, it's all up to the individual to perceive and receive it the way that they want. So so now that kind of ties into Sugar Coated. So Sugar Coated was an exhibit that I spent all last year planning. So Sugar Coated was using candy and sugar imagery to spotlight social and political truths of our time that mainstream society is ignoring. So I figured if people can't handle the truth, I might as well sugarcoat it.
Yes, so, you are so creative, dude. Like, not just your like physical pieces that you put together, but all the ways that you think about stuff before you put it out, and like really put your intention and your heart and soul in it. It's like you put your stamp on everything you could do. I can tell, like, just in 10 minutes of talking to you.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to get there. It took me a long time to like develop, being able to be comfortable with who I am first.
Yeah.
And then figuring out what I can do for other people, because ultimately a fulfilling life is that of service, and you can use whatever talents that you were given to serve in some way. So like if you're a singer, you can use your music to serve. If you're an athlete, you can use your platform to serve. Look at Colin Kaepernick. And so it's, all of our innate designs in terms of what our natural talents and abilities are, I think that can be used with a higher purpose. Yeah. So, and it's become really important for me to do that. So the project that I was telling you that I've been working on is called Rhyme and Reeson. It's an adult cartoon show that actually just in the last week, we have a soft agreement that we're going to get management. So woo! It's really, really big.
Yo,
really big deal.
I'm for you and for that project.
So Rhyme and Reeson is about two alien best friends. One's an activist and one's a raver, and it's about their conflicting worldviews. So, we live in a world where there's the people who want to stay asleep and are cool with the Matrix. And then there's the people who are like, you got to wake the fuck up. Yeah. And there's always these like bumping of heads of these two types of ideas. And why not put that into a cartoon show so that people can kind of see these two worlds interacting in ways that are, not as offensive because it's not real life. They're aliens. So that project is moving, which is amazing. And it's pretty wild, like I've always loved writing, but, I never really thought that would be something. I never thought that writing was going to be, the avenue that was, going to take me up in that direction. But it seems like it's been the project that's allowed me to really express my depth in a new way. And that's kind of crazy too, because that project came to me through Instagram. This guy had developed the concept and he found me. He was searching for different artists. Yeah. And he was like, he came across me and he didn't even know that I was an activist at the time.
That's fire.
Just super fire, like universe at work. So
yes. It's interesting. I was just talking with someone the other day about how, like, especially now with the situation that's happening, like Instagram is really like a free public art gallery if you use it the right way, where you can like curate your page so that when people go there, it's like they're walking into your own art gallery. And there's actually so many networking opportunities on here. It's crazy.
It's very true. And I think that people are really starting to see social media as in a different light. Because a lot of the influencers, I was just reading an article about a lot of the influencer culture falling off because, people don't want to be promoting products in a time where there's people struggling so hard. Mm-hmm. So I think that we're going to see a real change in the way that social media is used and how we consume our content. So it's we live in very upheaval times at the moment, and it can be really difficult for artists. So I really appreciate what you're doing here to create a platform. I think it's really important.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate having you on here and and hearing about your projects. I know I definitely agree with you. I'm an artist myself too, not professionally. I'm more in the profession of organizing stuff and bringing people together, but um, it it does seem more important now than ever. So it's been a really exciting thing. We came up with this project back before this happened, and we've been able to like pivot and switch and go with the flow of how life is now. And it's been super fruitful. So thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure is all mine anyway, because I feel like a lot of people are feeling really voiceless right now.
Yeah,
It's just really difficult for people to feel like they're being heard. And so it's really valuable to start creating, communities in a new light. So, because I personally believe that we are on the cusp of a new type of society where, I'm really hoping, we don't know yet, that our obsession with materialism is going to change. Our need for authenticity is going to change. I think that we're maturing as a race. I say this all the time. Like, I kind of believe that humanity is kind of in an adolescent phase. And the adolescent phase is when you take and you take and you take and you take from your mother, and you never really have any sort of perception of the amount of work that it takes for her to be able to provide those things for you. And and then you grow up from adolescence into early adulthood, and you realize, she's putting a lot of work, and there's a balance, and there's a respect that has to be maintained in order for things to be sustainable. So I think, we're growing up as a species and realizing that we're hitting those limits, and it's time for us to mature.
that's real. Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I think when you think about world history, it's definitely been very exploitative, very much like take, 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 take. And you see that all over the place, like in consumerism culture, even in like relationships between people, like people will sometimes like unconsciously just exploit someone.
Yep.
And like all these isms that we have, like sexisms, racisms, those types of things, I think those all come from that kind of like exploitative type culture too. So that's
Yeah,
cool.
they definitely do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so, well, it's really interesting because when you look at, I've been doing a lot of exploration in terms of like, what is God really,
Mhm.
because the idea of God is, it's been sold to us as this like white man who sits up in the clouds and makes decisions about whether we're worthy or not.
Right.
What I'm really realizing, so one of my favorite quotes is, an astronaut went to space and he came back, and somebody's asked him, so did you meet God? And he said, yes. And she is black. And
Yeah.
and what he realized is that the stars are the masculine energy, the physical energy, the physical, material reality. But God is the space in between. Right?
I've never heard that part of it before.
Pretty wild, right?
What?
Because if you think about it, like God is the page on which the words are written.
Yes.
God
And
is
like
the void.
the life force from which it comes. You know what I mean?
Yep. So, it's interesting because if you think about the feminine energy as something, it's the supportive energy that allows everything else to work, but it's
The
the
yin.
invisible energy. And
Mm-hmm.
similarly, women support world, and we support men, and we make sure that everything functions and works properly,
Right.
but we are equally kind of disregarded as not as essential as men, when in actuality we're the supporting network that keeps everything moving.
Right.
So, and with this mindset of exploitation, you end up with rape, murder, like the
Yeah.
vaccines. Like, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but mandatory vaccines is kind of like against consent to me.
I'm not with it.
I'm not with it. I'm not
And
with it. Like,
I know like that's controversial and stuff. And so for any of our viewers right now, if you got the MMR vaccine, especially, like, thank you for doing that. I don't really want measles. But also, I agree. I think that mandatory vaccines are against consent and like individual dignity.
yeah. So I think that we're definitely coming around. At least consent is a part of our conversation in a way that it
Right.
wasn't before. That's a new development in the last couple of years. So I think that definitely things are switching. I think that a lot of women are realizing that we do have a lot more power than we thought that we did, and it'll be really beautiful to see how that blossoms. And I believe that as it does, it will make everyone's lives better. And
Yes.
it's really funny. Like one of the things that I saw was there was a quote that was talking about the only reason that men are as afraid of women ruling things is that they think that women will rule in the same ways that they've ruled over women.
Yep.
And so they're fearful of it. And I'm like, well, that should actually say a lot about how you're operating. But the reality is that I think that when women are in power, I think that everyone will be better nurtured and better supported, and it will be overall a more balanced society. So I'm excited to do what I can to facilitate that development through my artwork. So, like, for example, there's one episode in Rhyme and Reeson where, so basically, they have this thing called the life drug where they go to a rave and they take this big balloon, kind of like NOS gas, and they transport into human on Earth. So they get high on life and they transport into a human life. So it's like,
whoa, that's like multi-dimensional.
Yeah. So
that's
we're
awesome.
switching through animated form into human form, so that
whoa.
So it's going to be a really unique concept. So
oh my gosh, I can't wait.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. So one of the things that we're using these life trips for is, so Reeson, who's this he's all he wants to do is slap alien cheeks and get laid. That's his deal.
Yep.
So they reformulate the life drug, and he goes on a life trip, and he becomes a woman, and he gets molested while he's a woman, and he comes back, and he's like, what the fuck? And so he sees like women being like all of his favorite restaurants and everything that he goes to. He just sees girls being harassed all the time, and he's like, oh my God, what do I do? I don't know how to handle this. And he even goes back through his own memories and starts seeing that he actually was a part of the problem without even knowing it. So it's a really interesting show because it allows, in a really humorous way, to talk about issues on what is each of our individual participation in this dynamic that keeps women as second-class citizens.
I love that too, because I think that touches on a really important point, which is that a lot of time this behavior is outside of people's awareness, especially for men, because they are in that position of like the superior position in society or whatever. So they don't even have to think about it as much as we do. Whereas for us, it puts us in a position of defense. So of course we have to think about it. And I think that allows for some grace. Like, not that it's okay for men to act that way, but that because of our society and culture, it's set up so that they don't even have to think about their behavior. And so understanding that you really have to put somebody on to the whole idea of what it's like to be a woman before you can even expect them to start behaving differently.
It's absolutely the truth. And it was really funny. I watched a TED Talk about that actually yesterday, about a trans man, trans woman actually. And he goes, I was a white man for a long time before I became a woman. And he goes, and I had no idea the privilege that I had. And it wasn't until I became a woman and I was experiencing discrimination and mansplaining. And he was like, I had no idea. And he goes, we have so far to go, but it's really hard to explain to a man what his privilege is without comparing it to some other type of experience. And it's like, well, how are you going to do that? Because most people aren't going to live life as a woman, But at least we're developing a dialogue around these types of dynamics, and I think that that's really the most important and first step.
Absolutely. Well, our time, and I'm really upset about this. I might have to do a longer interview next time because our time is about up. So what are your final words? What would you like to leave our viewers with today?
Don't lose hope. I believe that these are just, the birthing pains of a new existence. And so long as we can keep ourselves tapped into the energies of love and compassion and empathy, and understanding that everybody is doing the best they can from where they are, it allows us, it alleviates us from the judgment that's so easy to succumb to, that keeps us in a dark place.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going to put this photo up again because it's just so beautiful.
Oh, Nipsey, man. He's an angel on earth is what I believe about him. Yeah, that's angels, G's and G-O double D's.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, well, Trew, thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Sylvia. It was really great to chat with you. I hope we can do this again.
Yeah, you too. We'll definitely have you back.
Ciao.
Bye.